Parenting is one of the most rewarding things we can do as human beings, but sometimes it can also be one of the things that challenges us the most. We're going to be checking in on a mental health awareness expo. They're sharing resources for families and children. Chelsea is an author and she focuses on children with ADHD and their journeys. Jason is a licensed crisis prevention therapist. And Mary, my co host, is an author and special needs and disabilities advocate. And they are at the expo. So let's see if we can join with them.
Hi, how
So if you're just joining us, welcome to the show. We are checking in on the Mental Health Awareness Expo. They're sharing resources for families and children. So let's see if we're able to join us.
hi, how are you?
I'm good in yourself. I'm so glad that we can connect. Isn't this amazing?
I Yeah, because we have a lot of rain going on here. So, and earlier we didn't have a good connection with our internet service. So, yeah, I'm so glad to be able to connect. So, yeah, we're here today at the Gallatin Public Library. It's a local library and in one of our cities that's close to where I live and where
So
Jason.
just to give everyone context, I'm in Cape Town, South Africa, and you are in Tennessee in the
I'm in
States.
Tennessee. Yeah, we're near Nashville, Tennessee. Yes. So, which is technology is amazing, isn't it? So that we can come together like this. But yeah, we're here today focusing, our focus is on mental health awareness and talking about that and talking about what's happening with our kids today and families and how, talking about resources and tools and things to help with that, to acknowledge it, to help them get started on information or tools and resources to help them be able to process through what they're going through, maybe to just be able to help them get in a healthier place.
That's fantastic, and I'm so glad that we were able to just catch each other live for a few minutes. Um, so just tell us why, why you got involved with what's behind your passion for special needs and disabilities.
Well, I have two children who are on the spectrum, so that automatically makes me, I have no choice, right? It's part of my life and my job. So I have a passion for helping children overcome challenges. And what I've seen my own children go through, all the therapies and diagnosis and, trying to get services that they need and helping them to maneuver through life and understand what they're going through and to have a positive mindset about themselves, be able to accept where they are, accept others in their lives and their friends and, whatever situation they're dealing with, to be able to have a better, more positive mindset about it. So that's where my passion comes from. I feel like it's important to start our kids off early. And so our beautiful librarian here at the Gallatin Public Library, asked Jason and Chelsea and I if we would put this event, come together for this event. And each of us is coming from a different point of view, but we all have a lot of commonality together. And so I try to use the written word to write positive, teach lessons and have positive language for kids to start early. But I also have resources that I brought today to for parents to use with their children to help them figure out how to go from maybe being in a red zone to a green zone, and different tools that they can use, exercises and, different modalities to be able to help them get back to being, calmer, process how they feel, understand what they feel. So it's not just so frustrating, especially for nonverbal children and low verbal children. That is very, very frustrating for them when they can't express how they feel. So there's different ways that a child can express what they're going through,
Yeah,
That's very much.
yeah. No, it's very important that we do that. So you've got Jason and Chelsea with you there. Which one of
I
them are
do.
able to join us quickly and just to give us an overview of the
Sure.
conversation today?
Jason is sliding in.
Hi, Jason. Nice to meet you.
Hello, and so nice to meet you as well.
So tell us a little bit about who you are, what you do, and what you're thinking about today.
Well, again, my name is Jason Scruggs. I spent 20 years in education teaching middle school students. And after seeing just a huge decline in the mental and emotional health of my students, I decided to earn a second master's degree in professional counseling. So, for the last several years, I have been an adolescent crisis therapist and also work in private practice for myself.
Fantastic.
So,
And what were you focusing on today as part of the conversation?
today I came from a preventative and then an addressing kind of standpoint because I feel like so many of the issues kind of go unnoticed with our children. They carry sometimes a face of resiliency, and sometimes parents are caught off guard when they realize that their child has presented to the stage of suicidal ideation or some type of self-harming ideation. And so I wanted to kind of address and encourage parents to do a self-evaluation so that they could take a step back and maybe look through a different lens of their children and maybe first acknowledge, which I think is key in this situation, acknowledge that our children are very stressed. You know, I quoted one of my middle school parents that I heard just recently kind of saying out of frustration, "You have no reason to be stressed. You're only in middle school." That was very disheartening to me. Our children do have plenty of reasons to be stressed, you know, and though sometimes they present as though they're not, they are. And so I think that is key number one, is that we simply acknowledge that our children are going through stressors. Some may carry it well, some may not, but acknowledging that those stressors exist is key. And then I went into, okay, once we've acknowledged that, how can we assess our children? You know, some it may be a very basic level where we simply validate their emotions, give them emotional and safe space to speak to us as parents, and just simply let them know that we are accepting of them, we're accepting of their emotions, and normalize what they're going through. And then I also spoke of warning signs that may indicate that there is maybe something more serious or an underlying illness that may be needing to be addressed by a professional, such as a therapist, as myself, or a psychiatrist.
Jason, you've opened up a conversation that's very important, and especially so with the pandemic. I really feel strongly that one of the challenges we face is that children don't have the tools. Very often, I mean, right now we're talking about suicide prevention and awareness, and adults have a hard enough time to express themselves as it is when they're not coping with life or dealing with things, and so we rely on each other's to look out for one another and notice things like that. I often think about examples, times when we lose loved ones in our lives. People extend kindness and assistance to adults, but oftentimes the children are overlooked as also going through a very stressful time when people are dying, and especially now with the pandemic. I think we are grossly underestimating the impact on our children, and they don't have the tools to express what are lacking or how they're feeling. Could you maybe share one or two things that we can use to identify when there's a problem, and what we can how we can assist?
Absolutely. You know, I could not agree with you more. I do think that their stress and their grievance and their emotions are oftentimes overlooked as adults are more inwardly focused. So I just want to reiterate, I feel like that you're exactly on point there. You know, looking for some of these warning signs are going to be key in our children. You know, are they withdrawing from social involvement? Do you see, and so many times I hear parents say that, no, my child is just angry. And so looking for those mood swings that may indicate that they have bottled up emotion, pent up emotion that they're not able to regulate, that often presents as anger, but started with grief, started as fear, as you were relating to the pandemic, started as sadness. The list of emotions could go on and on. But then sometimes parents only see the outward behavior of anger, and that's what they get hyper focused on. And so they're wanting to just easily excuse, I've just got a mad child, when without taking that time to backstep and to investigate. And as I mentioned before, to validate those emotions, trying to create that safe space for that child to feel comfortable to go into a greater and more depth elaboration. So I think that's very key, to look for some of those very first warning signs. And obviously those warning signs can become more involved, such as self-harm, suicidal ideation, where the child may be writing, talking, discussing, posting on social media, things that may indicate that their minds are leaning towards something more scary, such as suicide, as you mentioned, with this being Suicide Prevention Month. So looking and being aware, just kind of knowing that to some certain degree it is going to be in existence, and then looking for those warning signs is going to be key. And then, as you mentioned, and you asked the question, okay, what can we then do about it? Then encouraging the child to talk, open up. And then if we as parents do not feel like that we are reaching the depths of that of help that they need, fostering that on into a professional such as a mental health counselor and or a physician.
So could you give us some warning signs, when parents should realize they need professional help? Because sometimes, kids have tummy aches for extended periods, that you can't, that's not going away with medication. So, it's not beyond just physical issue. There's something, more deeper that's causing these tummy aches or headaches or however else it's manifesting in their bodies, and they can't explain it. At what point would you advise parents to seek help?
My golden line for myself and for everyone else: everyone needs a good therapist. So with that being said, there are some, more red flag or higher warning signs that one would maybe signify professional help is needed immediately. And number one, I would encourage any parent that feels like they have reached their ceiling of help, that would win. And so some parents may feel a little bit more comfortable, talking, communicating. Some children may feel more comfortable talking. So anytime a parent feels like that they've reached their ceiling, definitely want to bring in a professional. But beyond that, even for the comfortable parent, even for the child that has open communication with their parents, anytime you see that prolonged period of isolation, which would indicate a depressive disorder, perhaps, they're hanging out in their room more than they were. You're seeing those very frequent mood swings that maybe you didn't see a few weeks prior. You mentioned something very indicative of some high anxiety that is presenting in physical symptoms such as stomach aches, headaches, noticing changes in eating habits, which would impact, sudden weight loss and or gain. Sleeping patterns are changing. School, academic performance is changing. If you have an older adolescent, maybe they're starting to have some work issues. They're not showing up for work, and again, so many of those combined oftentimes get overlooked. And so putting those pieces together is going to be key. But anytime I encourage a parent to reach out for that professional help, anytime that they feel like that they're seeing these signs and or they've also reached the place where they just feel like they want their child evaluated, bring a professional on. We can encourage you, we can assist you, all in the betterment of your child.
Jason, have you seen any change since the onset of the pandemic in the amount of children that are struggling?
Absolutely. And it's kind of peculiar, some of the changes that I'm seeing, especially in crisis care. If we would have rewound time and looked at last year, we saw that initial burst of fear. We have seen some grief that goes a little bit more hidden, perhaps, but we did see a sudden burst of fear. We also saw a lot of emotions that were related as schools began to shut down, because for some children, that was their safe space. They were isolated now from friends. And so that was a coping mechanism as they got to hang out and kind of interact with their peers. However, now we're seeing very suddenly a high peak as they're transitioning back into a routine. School itself is becoming extremely stressful. So, whereas last year they were missing school, now they may be glad to be back into school, but the workload and just the fact that they've had to adopt a very quick routine that they went a whole year without is absolutely piquing a tremendous amount of stress on our children.
And in addition to, the workload, I'm almost thinking that some sort of, intervention needs ongoing intervention to help children cope with that anxiety of the flood of work that they now got to deal with. But beyond just the flood of possible schoolwork, which already prior to the pandemic, I mean, my boys are way out of school many years ago already. But even back then, I always had a hard time with how I feel our children are being overloaded and overwhelmed with the amount of pressure and schoolwork. And, I had a huge problem with that as a parent. But now with the pandemic, there was just a new dynamic added on top of that already sort of loaded gun that we had pointed at our children in terms of the pressure. So now we've got on top of that, plus we've got, issues with masking. And I just want to ask you in terms of masking and school, that kind of, is there sort of any added anxiety there? And I don't want to get into the debate about it. To me, it's not about, masking versus not masking. It's not that kind of debate. But, is the fear of the consequences of catching COVID also adding to the stress that our children are feeling?
I would like to say I personally, and again, reiterate the word personally, believe that it is. So I believe our children are bringing in a plethora of different stressors, and sometimes it becomes very entangled, and it's hard for them to, not only is it difficult for them to process, but then it is also very difficult for them to verbalize and even string apart this ball of yarn, so to speak, that has become one big cluster of emotion for them. And we know that is a lengthy process in working and varying out some of the different situations that may be just kind of compiling within them.
It's quite a mixed bag of things to deal with. And I think, for a lot of parents, I mean, Mary, you've dug your way through a lot of issues and stuff for parents. And so, I would like to see or think of you as one of the more empowered parents. Not all parents have the time maybe. And I'm not saying that in a bad way, to get as involved as you have done as a mom.
I feel like that's
And
true also. I feel like it's the life has presented itself for me that way, and there's no way I could take a back step. If I did, I'd be doing an injustice to my children, and as a parent, I mean, I would not be a good parent had I not stepped up. And like Jason and I and Chelsea and I were talking about, one of the most important things is empowering yourself through education of what's happening to your child or to you as a family. Because whenever something's happening with your child, it affects the entire family. It's not just the child who's going through it. As mothers, as fathers, as caregivers, as aunts, uncles, we feel that, it affects us as well. And it's hard to watch a child suffering. So even if they have a disability, it's hard to watch them go through that struggle. So let's learn about what's going on or read about it or research or whatever we can to empower them and empower ourselves as well. So
I think that admittance is so key as well that Mary was just mentioning, that we as parents, again, take on that role of, I don't understand everything and I need to do some additional research. I need to speak with someone, that be a school counselor or another parent that may be going through a similar situation. We need to acknowledge sometimes that we do need additional help. And that we also as parents sometimes need to acknowledge that we are stressed and that sometimes our stress is impacting our families, and to kind of focus in how we can address our personal stress, which is then going to be an alleviance of our children.
Yeah.
Jason, can I ask you something? When our children are struggling, is it would you recommend that a parent says to their child, it's okay, I'm struggling too? Should you say that to your child, or should you hide the fact that you
Yeah.
are that you're also
Be
feeling
more
stressed? Again, I, for example, always felt that if I'm feeling sad, I would say to my kids, I'm feeling sad, so that I let them know it's okay for them to feel sad.
Absolutely. Normalization is so important, to let them know that, number one, there is a good reason to be sad. There is a good reason to be hurting, whatever that emotion is. Let them know that, because again, if we don't do that, then what oftentimes can happen is that individual, in this case, the children that we're speaking of, will tack on an additional layer of guilt, shame, because they start feeling that they're invalidate or invalidating themselves, because they're like, nobody else is feeling this. So therefore I must be weak for feeling this. I must be, and then they fill in a blank with, additional words that are criticizing. And so I think that, even from the standpoint of a parent, to be able to say, I'm also sad, I'm also hurt, is very key. You brought up an excellent point.
Yeah. And then let the child know that it's not, the child hasn't caused it. Because children, we
Absolutely.
tend to take on the guilt and think it's our fault. Like when parents divorce, the child believes it's their fault, right? So, yeah.
Communication absolutely is key. Jason, before we call Chelsea in, do you have any final sort of advice that you would like to leave parents with?
My final word is just, again, I want to stress from my standpoint today, as I've tried to reiterate throughout our morning here at the Expo, is this is not a parent shame. This is an encouragement, to just step back and evaluate, and so allow others. Do not feel alone. Just know, we don't want our children to feel alone as they are stressed and they're kind of going through. We don't want our parents to feel alone, and as their children, and as they may see some of these warning signs. We don't want you as parents to feel alone either. We don't want you to feel like that you're failing as a parent because you have to look outside of the home and ask for resources. And so that would be my encouragement to parents today, as you are primary, you're in the trenches with your children, and we want you to be able to help those children seek the right resources when they can't drive, they may not have their own financial means, and so some of this encouragement, positive direction, begins within the home. So I want to encourage parents. It does not mean that you're being a quote unquote bad parent. It means that you love your child, and sometimes the hardest thing to do is to admit that we don't have all the answers.
And that our child needs help.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I appreciate your time today. I appreciate you speaking with me.
Thank you very much, Jason, and thanks for sharing your insight with us.
Okay, you're up, Miss Chelsea. Thank you, Jason, so much.
I think that was such valuable insight, just to sort of say to parents that it's okay to struggle. It's okay, not to have all the answers. And I think you're teaching your children valuable skills in the process. That, you don't know everything, and it's okay for them to not know everything.
Right, absolutely. Well, and also, to give permission that it's okay to get help, because there are people who believe it's not okay. It's a weakness to seek help, right? That's not the truth. So,
Chelsea, welcome.
Hi, thank you for having me today.
So Chelsea is also a children's author as well. And so I will let you go ahead and introduce yourself and talk about your passion and what you're doing, what your work is.
Well, thank you so much for having me today. My name is Chelsea Redweichich DeSico. I am a children's author, and today I am here with these great people doing this mental health awareness event for children and families in the community. We feel that it's very important, especially with the pandemic, now more than ever, to just show our love and support of people in need. And that's what our goal is here today. I have my book, ADHD and Me, which talks about family and neurodiverse learning.
Put you on full screen for a second so you can show that book.
There you go. That's good. That cover looks really pretty.
Yeah,
Very
and
pretty.
thank you so much. But really, the goal in being here today is to just kind of help and support as much as we can. We know mental health awareness is so important. And the resources that we've brought today, me personally, I have some lesson plans for educators that they can. We have
Whoops.
some lesson plans available for educators from kindergarten to third grade. They're downloadable off of my website for free, chelsea'sworldofbooks.com.
Yeah, I'm going to take them into Carson's school.
So that's
Yes.
Chelsea's World of Books. I like
Yes.
that.
Books. Thank you.
Yeah.
But we have some cute pocket-sized ones here today, and we also
Oh,
have.
hold on. Let me put that on full screen so we can see that nice and clearly. That's beautiful.
Thank you. But these are an interactive guide. They help with social interactions for children. They have discussions and games, experiments, and homework activities for educators to utilize. So we're really excited to be sharing that too.
Yes, absolutely. Because, there are so many people, adults and children, who have a form of ADD or ADHD, and our world is not helping that. It's not like we've not changed over to a world where we're trying to help everybody calm down. It's such a fast pace. All the technology, like we were talking about earlier about TikTok and how it's, click, 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 swipe, 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 whatever. And it's not, we're not living in a world that's promoting things to calm down and to focus and be balanced. It's a world that's kind of conducive to what's next, what's next, what's next.
Very short attention spans. Yep.
Yes. So it's not helping. But I think that what Chelsea is doing is in her helping to educate parents and families about ADHD, what it's like to live with it, is just so empowering and can probably and might lead to more children and families realizing that's what's going on with their child, to get them the right help that they need.
And highlighting also open communication, kind of setting the way for these conversations to be had so that people can find the help that they need. And one of the things also that this book deals with is how to identify your support system. That is very important for anyone to heal or really feel accepted, is to know who your people are, which can be difficult if you don't know where to begin. So.
Absolutely. And I think, you hit the nail on the head. We need to talk about this a lot more so that the conversation becomes mainstream, so that, people realize these challenges that our children have are not going to go away. And, it's just a different family life when you have children with challenges. And you can't wish it away. It's you have to find ways of living around the challenges that life present us, and if we can stop, I wish we would get to a point sometime where people stop looking at children that are differently abled as different. It's just that they have a different skill, but we need to stop the stigma of children who have different abilities being almost subpar to children that society deems to be normal. What really is normal?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And so the more we talk about it and the more we create awareness, the less of an issue it will become. And I always like these conversations where it creates awareness that oftentimes prejudice is passed down through the eyes and mouths of parents, because children don't have the prejudice, but they are in what their parents say and pass down. So parents, we need to be super, super, super careful about our messaging and wording.
Oh, absolutely. And because children emulate everything they see in their environment. So, we have a big responsibility when we bring children into this world. We have to grow up and we have to clean ourselves up, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Actually, part of the inspiration for writing this book, it is based on my own experiences growing up with ADHD. Although the characters portrayed are fictional, it was inspired a lot by those events. And I remember there being a lot of misconceptions and name calling for people when really it wasn't something that was in their control. So the attitude adjustment and just changing how we view people is so important. And it's one of the reasons that I was so passionate about wanting to share this story so that people who have these different learning needs feel connected and part and not like they're outcasts or different.
I think that's important, and well done on your book. Your book is for which age group do you target with your book?
Oh, it is from ages 6 to 8.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. The lesson plans are from 5 to 8 for the interactive part of the school, though. So I think it's kindergarten to third grade, to be exact.
Good.
Fantastic. So where can teachers access your lesson plans?
So if you go on my website, chelseasworldofbooks.com, there is actually right on the menu, there's a free lesson plans. And you click that, and there's a downloadable PDF for the classroom. So it's super
Fantastic,
easy.
Chelsea. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. I'm so glad that we were able to connect because
Yeah.
Wi-Fi isn't always the greatest, but it's held up fantastically. So I'm very pleased about that. So thank you very much for joining us and for sharing.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Well, we're so glad to be here today. Thank you, Brigetti. And, we want to just encourage people wherever you are to start having those conversations with your families, with your children, do some research, go and if your child has needs, go get them taken care of, don't put it off, go get the help you need. And because you only make the world a better place for them, and they will be the best version, helps them to be the best version of themselves they can be. And what a great thing to do for a child.
Absolutely. Let's share the love.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us, everyone. Have a good weekend further and stay safe. Take
Yeah.
care.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.
Bye.